Marketing and sales are the exact same. They're one and together. They're a machine. Like most people in my generation are lazy, unmotivated, unintelligent, don't want to work hard, aren't willing to do what it actually takes to survive and succeed. You have to adapt, and if you don't adapt, you die, and that's the reality. Yet I was outperforming them 5x, 7x, 10x even. I was collecting more than the rest of that team combined. I believed I could have the biggest group in the entire industry in a month of lunch.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the podcast. We've just got Andres here today, and we're just going to talk everything about sales, about business, and about mindset, and just overall how to make more money. So, welcome aboard, Andres.
Thank you,
Let's have
man.
you introduce yourself. Tell me about yourself.
So my name is Andres. I'm 17 years old now, and in the past year and a half, I started as a 16-year-old high school kid, just going to math class, doing the normal stuff, if you will, to in the past year and a half, I launched a company, got it to 36K a month. Then I left that company, went into a different company, got them from 600K a month to $3.5 million a month in cash collection in an Inc. 5000 company alongside my business partner. And then since leaving that, launched the Impact Team, which is now the biggest sales community in the entire high-ticket sales industry with over 4,500 members at this point. And since launch in the past 2 months, got it to 150K a month profit. So that is my one-liner, if you will.
And that's all USD, right? All USD, not
All
AUD.
USD, no Canadian. We don't do any Canadian shit around here. All USD.
Right. Very, very interesting. I mean, if we just jump straight into it, a question that every single one of my clients have is obviously the clients that work with me. We sell pretty high ticket stuff, right? From
Yeah.
just relatively old school industry. But it's how do you reduce the sales cycle? A lot of our clients, they think, just call them more, say, are you interested? Is it about providing value? Like, how do you really push them along? Because many people also say, hey, reduce the time, or other people say, hey, just give them more information.
So basically what to focus on in the sales process in order to make the
Correct.
sale?
To
I think
reduce
the
the
biggest
sales
thing it comes down to,
cycle. Yeah.
everything before a pitch or presentation, you're selling the prospect on making a change. So I'll give you an example. If you're selling a marketing service, everything before the pitch should be convincing them their marketing is terrible, they need to change it, and their marketing is what's causing all these problems that they have now. That is the goal. From the pitch onwards, it's convincing them that you're the solution they want to have. So for example, if you're a contractor, let's say, everything before the pitch or the presentation is getting them to realize, I need to make a change. If not, X and Y and Z is going to happen to my house, and it's going to cause all these problems, and it's going to impact me and my family in this specific way. And then everything from the presentation moving onwards is, why am I the solution? Why should it go with me? So that's how I think about sales. And then you have to obviously ask very, very specific questions to get them to understand the problems and the extent of the problems and what's causing them, which is their current strategy. So that's essentially the high level of what you're trying to accomplish in a sales conversation.
Right. Well, just really interestingly, in terms of the follow-ups, how should just people in general approach a follow-ups? Is it with value? Is it with consistency? Like, how do you think is the best way to actually do that?
So it depends on the industry. So for example, if it's like more of a high ticket industry, so like for example, marketing services, stuff like that, honestly, follow-up shouldn't really exist that much. You should, people have a really weird idea of why you should follow up. Because who's the one with the problem? Is it you, or is it the prospect whose roof is about to fall down? It's the prospect with the roof. So why should you have to follow up with somebody who's in a life-threatening situation because they're the one that has the problem? Yet you're having to follow up with them to help them save their life? Like, how does that make any sense? So I think follow-up, if you really bring it down to what it fundamentally is, in the sales conversation, you should be building such a big gap, helping them understand their actual problem to such a deep extent that in the follow-up, they should be the ones following up with you. Where should we go from here? What are the next steps? How do we progress through this? Like, they should be the ones following up, not you. That's how I think about it.
Right. And just one big thing that, my contractor clients face is kind of pre-framing the value and the consequences of choosing the wrong option. So for example, let's say there were three options. One for 60K, one for 55K, and one for 30K. And obviously everyone knows that the cheapest option will obviously deliver the worst results.
Yeah.
But obviously for a client, for any prospect, when they look at it, they go, yeah, I value price, I value quality of everything. But when it comes time to pulling out their card, they immediately go
Then
to the one with the lowest
yeah.
price. So
So there's
what would
two
you kind of say
questions.
to that?
There's two questions I would ask. The first one is like, if you get an objection like that. Well, I mean, John, like you tell me, like why do you feel like so many clients go with us, even though we are the most expensive option, rather than just going with the 30K guys? Oh, well, because you guys have higher quality and you guys have better communication, this and this and that. And it's like, so I guess in your mind, Nathan, like what's really more important? Is it more important for you to kind of go with like just kind of like the cheapest guys out there who will quote you like the least amount of money? Or is it more important for you to go with the guys who have the biggest reputation of getting the higher quality? That way you make sure, God forbid, nothing were to happen and XYZ doesn't occur, whether it's a roof falling down or whatever kind of contracting work you do. The consequence of it right there. Like what's really more important in your mind?
And
Oh, well,
what
that's
if
fun.
they say, okay, I want the cheapest and the best? Like you know it's impossible. What if they say, I want the cheapest and the best? I'm just gonna keep looking for it.
Well, my question is, which one's more important though? You just re-ask. One thing you have to understand, whenever consumers are trying to negotiate with you and trying to get some better price or whatever it might be, what they're trying to do is they're trying to essentially take control of the conversation, take the frame. I control this. This is mine, right? But if you want to be an effective sales rep or a business owner, if you're doing the sales yourself, you have to be able to take the frame back. So one easy way, if somebody doesn't answer a question, you just re-ask the same question. And then when they give you the answer, now you've taken the frame. I ask, you answer. But if you ask a question and they're like, oh, neither, they're trying to take the frame. They're trying to take control. So you have to essentially show them like who's the boss, who's leading this, without obviously being aggressive or too direct, because then it'll just trigger resistance. That's the middle ground.
Right. So I guess just one big question, very high level question that a lot of people have is how do you sell without being salesy? Because one of my clients, they were doing follow ups for being persistent, which is how most sales reps and business owners are taught. But somehow they got told they got told to kind of piss off. Could that be the tonality? That needs to be a certain way, or could that be the way they're asking the questions? Like, what would your one bit of recommendation be for people that are trying to sell without being salesy?
The easiest way to think about it is, again, if you're a sales rep, helping them solve a problem that could have potential terrible ramifications for them and their family, why would you have to be following up with them? They should be following up with you. So then again, if he's having to follow up with them and they tell him to piss off, yeah, it's because of the fact that he had to follow up in the first place. Because if he had asked better questions in an initial conversation to help them understand the extent of their problems and what's causing it and the consequences if they allow it to continue, he wouldn't have to follow up in the first place. And so it's him getting told to piss off in the follow-up, that's not a problem, that's a symptom of the problem. The problem is not asking the right questions in that initial conversation to help them understand the real situation, the real issue. And that's why he's being viewed as salesy. Because if you're not asking those questions, but you're just telling them, I have this, I have this, I have this, this is what I can do for you, this is what I can do for you. How many other people have told him the same damn thing? Everybody. So if you're asking the same questions as everybody else, or you're saying the same things as everybody else, what bucket are they going to put you in? Well, the same bucket as everybody else. So then what results are you going to get? Same results. And then you just become an average sales rep, rather than being effective in how good you could truly be.
Right, gotcha. And just kind of, stemming from that, a lot of the time, the way they're sounding as well is extremely salesy. Like, are you interested? Are you ready to move forward now? Like, what would they say? What could they say instead?
So one of the keys to speaking in a way that's neutral without triggering resistance in prospects is what we call neutral languaging. So rather than assuming like, oh, hey, is this John? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you were interested in X, Y, and Z. As soon as you say, I know you were interested, and the prospect knows it costs money, what's going to be their natural reaction? Oh, no, no, no. Like, I was just kind of looking to see what you guys had. Resistance. They get into defensive mode because they feel like you're putting something onto them. But if you go, yeah, it looks like you were like possibly interested in X and Y and Z, the word possibly makes it more neutral. So now it doesn't trigger resistance. They're like, oh yeah, I was possibly interested. You're not putting something onto them. So neutral languaging is really the key. It's like, I know you were possibly interested in this. I know you were potentially looking for this or possible help with X and Y and Z. So it's using a lot of that neutral languaging is what's going to trigger a lot less of that resistance and allow them to be a lot more open to the questions you're asking to get much deeper answers, which again is how you build that urgency to make them actually want to make a change.
Right. And you just touched on urgency just there. I mean, what are some good questions to really build the urgency? For example, for a lot of my clients, they're struggling to build urgency because they aren't asking the right questions. And prospects aren't visualizing in their mind why it's so urgent to do it now. So then they go to my clients and they keep pushing them along and along, wasting everyone's time. Like, what are some questions to ask? What's your approach for that?
I think the best way is through consequences. Because if you help somebody understand the consequence of continuing to do something or continuing to have a problem, they're naturally going to want to not continue to do it. So if somebody has a roof leaking, then it's like, well, I guess in your mind, like, what do you think could be the possible like ramifications in the future? Like if the roof keeps leaking and XYZ keeps happening for the next 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, even 2 years. That would be one example. Or if you want to do it a lot more neutral, because that's not really your personality, then it could be like, well, I guess have you considered, like I guess what could potentially happen if XYZ problem continues for the next 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, even 2 years? Oh, well, the roof might collapse, like the leaking would get worse. Because as soon as right there they admit, well, the leaking would get worse and the roof could collapse and XYZ could happen, it's very difficult for them at the end to be like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to continue with this and kind of see what happens. Very hard because they already told you, well, XYZ is going to keep happening. I'm going to have this problem. And once they give you the answers, you have to probe into it. So after they say, like, if they're like, oh, I think the leaking could get worse and like potentially could get a lot worse. Well, like when you say worse, like worse how? Oh, well, X and Y and Z, and like the hole could get bigger and more could keep draining, etc. So again, you're getting them to play out and actually vividly think about and remember the ramifications in the future if this problem continues happening in the future. That's the important part.
Right, gotcha. And just one big thing that I see all the time as well is the mindset behind selling. And I think you touched on before that they have the problem and you should have the authority so that they should be coming to you. And a
Yeah.
lot of my, just people in the industry usually, like, what's your approach, to building that authority in the first place? So you're allowed to, kind of think to yourself, hey, they have the problem, they got to come to me. How do you build that credibility and that authority?
I think it's the way you speak and the mindset you have going into the conversation. So, like, for example, using the neutral languaging, that's a massive part of it. Because if you're saying, like, yeah, I know you wanted to buy this, what does that make them subconsciously think? He needs me to buy
Sales guy.
this.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if it's like, yeah, I know you were like possibly interested in X and Y and Z, it's kind of like, oh, he doesn't really care like if I buy or not. He's just kind of like having a conversation seeing if he can help. And so then naturally they're gonna be a lot more open because they want to see, well, do I need this? Do I not? So they're gonna give you much deeper answers. So that's a big part of it is like using that neutral languaging, right? That's a massive part of it. The other aspect I would say, whenever it comes to like not being viewed as that sales guy, being able to build the urgency, et cetera, is honestly like just the way you speak, like more on top of just the wording, even the tonality, for example. If you go into it and you're like, yeah, I know you wanted this, et cetera, and you sound kind of desperate, then the natural reaction in human psychology is push away. People are desperate, push away from them. It's a defense mechanism. It's a safety mechanism. But if it's very like nonchalant, very casual, like, yeah, I know you're looking into this. They have no reason to be resistant. So they're going to be a lot more open to you. And again, that's how you get the deeper answers, uncover more pain, the consequences, and everything else, to where by the time you get to the presentation or the pitch, they're already bought into the fact that they have to make a change. Then when you go into the pitch, now it's like, is this the best person for me? And it's a lot easier to handle that.
Gotcha, gotcha. Very, very interesting there. I mean, just ultimately, just with selling in general, what would you kind of say to people that don't really kind of value sales in general because they think, I'll just shake someone's hand if I can shake it firmly. I'm good at sales. What would you kind of say to those people? Like they know they have a marketing problem, but they go, yeah. Since I'm the one doing sales, I don't have a sales problem. It's the marketing guy that they need to kind of step up.
Well, I'll say one thing. When I was in that previous company, helping them get up to that $3.5 million a month, there was me and there was all these other people who some of them were 30, 40 years old, whatever, and I was selling against them. Before I started managing, recruiting, training the team, I was selling against them. Same leads, same marketing. Many of them better at shaking hands than I was. I was a 16-year-old kid. There are some 30, 40-year-old man with a wife and kids and much more life experience. Yet I was outperforming them 5x, 7x, 10x even. I was collecting more than the rest of that team combined. So I think the proof is in the pudding. Like, I think if you're not adapting, you're dying. And most people don't adapt. If you're still thinking the old way of thinking, the old way of doing business, you're not going to be able to keep up with the guy who's adapting and changing. There's, in the past, shaking hands and just having a conversation, being like, I do this, I do this, I do that. That worked. But nowadays, when people have access to so much information online, they can look up different roofers, different contractors, different bathroom remodelers online. They can get online quotes. They can speak to 10 different people just from making a simple search on Safari or Google. If you're still just giving information, what's going to set you apart from all these other people that are doing the exact same thing? It can't be quality of work because they don't know the quality of work before you've done it.
And
So
the
then what
funny thing is, everyone says they've got the best quality. So then how do
exactly.
you then differentiate yourself? And do you
Exactly.
feel like that's the way you run the sales process, the questions you're asking and all of that as well? Or
Yeah, if everybody's saying I have the best product and there's no way of them knowing who has the best product before you do
correct.
it, it has to come down to something else. And it comes down to two things: your marketing and your sales, which inherently people think about marketing and sales as different things. Marketing and sales are the exact same. They're one and together. They're a machine. Because if you have great marketing, sales becomes easier. If you have terrible marketing, sales becomes very, very hard. Same way, if you have bad sales, you need great marketing. If you have good sales, the marketing can be a little bit worse. And the perfect middle ground is when both of them are 50-50. Both of them are good. So if you have somebody coming in, doing your marketing, providing, and getting better, you have to match the sales ability just to the exact same degree. Because you could do the best marketing job in the world, make a ton of people aware, get a lot of leads, but at the end of the day, that same prospect can go online right after they see your ad. Maybe they see the ad and they're like, damn, I really do need a new roof. And they put in their lead opt-in. What are they doing right after putting in that lead? Safari, roofing companies, quotes near me, they get 5 other quotes. Everybody's heard the objection. So marketing can only take you so far, and sales takes you the rest of that way. So fundamentally, again, if the only thing that differentiates you is I have a better product, but somehow that differentiates everybody in the market, and it's differentiating nobody at all. So your sales has to be better to be able to create that urgency and build the trust and build the authority and everything else to where by the time you get to the end of the conversation, it's like, this is my guy. If you're not learning that, trust me, other people are.
Good point there. Good point there. And kind of a lot of this, the thinking, sales doesn't matter, comes from the fact that a lot of us, or just, old school business owners, they're used to closing referral leads, right? And they can't really tell why cold leads are different and how much harder it is to close them. I mean, you've obviously, closed referral leads and cold leads. What do you feel like is the difference between them and how they think and the way that they approach buying?
So if somebody knows they have a problem, which is the job of marketing, by the way, somebody knowing they have a problem. If somebody knows they have a problem, they know they need it fixed, then the only question is who's going to be the best person to fix it. Now, the way they can judge who's going to be the best person to fix it is obviously previous results. It's essentially what it comes down to is just having trust for the brand. That's it. Just having trust. So there's 2 ways to create that trust. If it comes from a referral, the trust is already there. But if it comes from a cold lead, cold market, the trust isn't there. So then the question becomes, how can I build that trust? And that's where sales has to play the role. If you think about trust in psychology, it's kind of like, it comes from 2 things. Number 1, having things in common with somebody. And number 2, them speaking and telling you deep things about themselves. What I mean by that, many people have had a friend before where they felt like a week into knowing that guy, they became best friends in like a week. Think about that person. How did that happen? And I bet you the answer you're going to come up with, there's 2 things. You got a lot in common with them. You could speak about common things, whether it was people in common that you guys knew, whether it was sports in common you enjoyed playing, whether it was a certain TV show you enjoyed watching, whether it was a certain hobby you had in common. That's number 1. And that you can do by, again, shaking hands and knowing people. That's good. Number 2, it's knowing deep things about that person. They probably told you very intimate about things about themselves that they haven't told a lot of people. You probably told them things about yourself that you don't tell a lot of people. Whether it was something about a certain relationship you had or something about your relationship with your parents or something, just something deep about yourself. You felt connected to them because of that. And so in a sales conversation, it's the exact same way. If you're good at shaking hands, that is an advantage that will help you because now you're able to have those things in common. You're able to find out more about the person. But the second thing, how do you build the trust? It's still not there. So the way you build the trust, again, is knowing deep things about that person, the exact same way in a friendship. And so how do you know these deep things, intimate things about these people? Again, you ask them specific things about their situation for them to tell you the problems they're experiencing. If they say, look, my roof is leaking and I wake up every day with the fear that like it's going to collapse one day and God forbid something bad's going to happen to my kids, that's not an easy thing to tell somebody. It's not. So if you can ask them questions to understand that, or you ask them a consequence question, they're like, well, I mean, if it keeps happening, I think like maybe one of these nights while we're sleeping, it collapses and maybe something happens to my kid. That's a deep thing to tell somebody. That's what builds the trust. And again, that trust, that's what differentiates you from everybody else. If they're already problem aware, they already know they need to get it fixed, now they need to build the trust. So that's when it comes down to sales. You ask those specific questions to build that trust for them to tell you intimate things, and now you're viewed as different than anybody else. So it comes back to the consequence questions, to the problem, like all those questions. That's what allows you to get deep into it. We call that the logical certainty stage.
Right, gotcha. And just from what I've seen as well, a lot of the ways that, people act as well is when they close a sale, they come in with the mindset of, how do I close this guy? How do I make as much money, from this person as I can? I mean, for you, and you've obviously made quite a bit of money selling. What were those affirmations you were telling yourself before you hopped on any sales call or met any client? What were you kind of going over and over in your head?
I didn't have affirmations. And the reason why is because I believe in having a process. If you have a formula that you can follow in every single conversation repeatably, without doubt, without failure, you don't need affirmations because you're going to do the exact same thing no matter what. If you have a process, the power of a process of a formula is you could wake me up at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, put me in front of a sales call, and I already know what to say because it's ingrained in my mind. The way I think about it, before I ever got into business, I was a semi-pro soccer player. Now, the way I think about soccer or sports as a whole, it's like you do drills over and over again so that in the game, you don't have to think about what you're going to do. I'll give you an example. In practice, there was this one drill we would always do. The ball would be coming at you, and you'd have to practice opening up your body and receiving it and then taking it off. Or in other situations, sometimes if the defender is coming at you and they're coming at you fast, you fake opening up your body to take it forward, but then you cut in at the last second and you take it towards the inside of the field. Because then the defender is going to go flying past you. And in a game, when I came into a game situation, I had to do that. I was never thinking about I am going to turn my body and open it and take it. I would just see the defender drop his shoulder a little bit, and I knew he was about to rush me. So then I cut in. But it wasn't a thought, it was an instinct. Because I'd done it so many times in practice that as soon as I got into the game, it just felt natural. It was a natural thing to do. Sales is the exact same way. If you're always trying to guess what you're going to have to do next, what question do I ask next, you're not going to have the success. But if you go into that conversation with a process and a formula that you know you're going to follow in that conversation no matter what, and you know the exact questions you're going to ask and the exact framework to take them through, you don't have to focus on what to say next because you're just waiting on them to give you an answer and you already know what's coming next. It's an instinct and you just automatically say it. So that's what I would say, because as soon as you have that instinct of this is what I'm going to say next no matter what, you don't need to have an affirmation. You don't need to think I'm going to tell myself this, because you're going to do the exact same thing no matter what. It's a process.
And to get that process, down pat, do you feel like the best way to do so is get the questions and get those proven questions and then just write it down 1,000 times, just practice it until when you get on site or when you go meet your client, you know exactly what to ask, what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and what exactly you have to accomplish by asking those questions so you can close those sales.
Yeah, that's the best way by far. It's like you have a process that's proven. If you try creating one yourself, go for it. It's a waste of time. Why would you try and make something new that you're going to have to trial and error for 5 years rather than just using one that's already working? Makes no sense. So I would take a process that's already working, that has the specific questions that you resonate with and you feel would work for you and your personality. You take them, you write that script every single day, 3 to 5 times a day, You write it over and over and over again. You use it in every single conversation, and eventually it'll become ingrained in your mind, where you don't have to think about what am I going to say. It just becomes, again, an instinct. So that's what I would recommend. And then at the end of every week, you can write out all your data. How many leads came through? How many people did I call that picked up the phone? How many appointments did I set up from that? How many appointments actually ended up going through and didn't cancel? How many of the appointments that I showed up to turned to a sale? What was my average cash collection on those deals? And then you start looking, what's my one lowest metric? And then every week, based on that formula you already have, you make one specific change that you already know makes sense and is going to have the biggest impact. You make that one change, and that'll always have the biggest results. And then every single week, you make one change, one change, one change, one change, until a year down the line, that one change is stacked up, and now you become the best in your area, in your industry. That's how you become great. Same thing I did. I had a formula. I made tweaks. I would make 2 changes a week over and over and over again based on data. Eventually, it stacked up to where now, a year and a half later, I can make more than most people will ever make in their life times 5. And the other kid, who also started when he was my age, but was trying to change the process every single week or trying to wing it, is still sitting in math class wondering why I didn't make any money. Same thing.
So something really, really interesting that I kind of, found from your story is you've been a business owner yourself, but you've also been able to be a very high level sales rep yourself as well. I mean, what do you feel like is the best way to connect marketing and sales? Because a lot of the time there's a big disconnect from these two areas, even though they're very similar. People, either just say, just fix the marketing thing or sales thing, sales thing. How do you kind of connect as a business owner, as a
Yeah.
sales rep, as a marketer?
So I'm a big believer in whoever's doing the marketing should review the first minute of every outbound call and every sales call. Because that'll tell you everything you need to know about the marketing. If they pick up the phone, they're like, no, I'm not interested, fuck off, you know the marketing, it's the marketing's fault. But if they pick up and they're like, oh yeah, like I was interested, even if they're nonchalant and casual and they sound like they don't really care, that's still a good lead. They still remember, they're still there, etc., like everything else. So I think the marketing should review the first minute of every call, right? Outbound call or even in-person appointment. The person doing the in-person, if it's a contractor, for example, they can record on their phone like the first minute of the conversation, send it to whoever's doing their marketing, and that person will be able to analyze that. On the other side, the sales should constantly know what's in every funnel, what's in every ad. They should always know what's going on the marketing front because it'll allow them to understand people's intent coming into the conversation. If I know the ad, for example, is talking about like making some really bold claim, almost like a bait and switch type of offer, then I'm going to be very general when I'm speaking to them. I'm going to be very generic. I'm not going to be specific of like, yeah, it looks like you looked for possible help with X and Y and Z because your roof is leaking here and it's causing this, it's causing that. I'm not going to say that because there's a bit of a bait and switch. If it's more bait and switch marketing, then as the sales rep or the business owner, when I'm calling the leads, it was like, yeah, it looks like you were looking for like possible help with like maybe fixing up your roof. Is that right? Yeah, it is. Again, I'm going to keep it very generic. So like knowing what's happening on the marketing front allows you to adapt as a business owner, as a sales rep, and then that's what drives the results. So I think from a sales perspective, you need to know what's happening in the marketing. From a marketing perspective, you need to know what's happening in a sales perspective. I think it's the exact same thing. And then you have a meeting every single week. You go over everything. You decide what needs to be changed. If the marketer reviews the first minute of every sales call, every sales appointment, and people have no intent or they're just saying like, oh, fuck off, then you add a little bit more qualification or more of a barrier to entry in order to enter the sales process. So maybe you ask an extra question on the form when they're opting in, right? Of like, oh, what's your timeline on looking into fixing your roof leaking, for example? Oh, well, it's in the next month. Great. Now you can filter out. If they say like, oh, I'm not really sure, you can have conditional logic. For example, if you're running Facebook ads or meta ads or whatever else, where it's just going to filter them out. They're not going to become a lead. So I think it's very important to be aware of what's happening in both, and then you come to solutions at the same time. Your goal shouldn't be to have a 9 out of 10 marketing team and a 1 out of 10 sales team. Your goal should be marketing and sales to always be at the same level because that's the fastest way to scale up. Because if not, one is always going to be the bottleneck. You want them to be at the same level and then rise at the same time as well. That's the key.
Okay, got very, very interesting there. Well, just kind of from your perspective, and obviously you're a younger bloke, you've seen older guys, you've seen some bigger businesses. What would you kind of say to just the older guys that are just sitting, out there, they could be relying on referrals and all of that, and they're seeing the younger guys really, just absolutely kill it with their business. What would you kind of say to those people, that go, hey, this young guy is doing this and that. Somehow I'm not growing. Like, what's happening? I'm better at this skill than that person.
If you don't have a way to pay to get clients, you don't have a business at all. That's the truth.
What do you mean by that?
If you're relying on, oh, I hope I get a referral this week. I hope I get an inbound call because of my Google website listing. You don't have a business. You need to have a way to be able to pay to acquire a client, whether it's through ads, whether it's through some sort of lead generation website, whether it's a marketing agent. Like, you need to have some way to be able to pay to get a client, because that's how you scale up. Predictability. That is the key of a business, predictability. Because if I know I'm going to spend $150 to get a lead, for example, and I know 1 out of every 3 leads turns into a sale, then what can I do? I can be like, okay, so if I spend $1,000, then I'm going to get, 8 leads, 7 leads, whatever the math is on that, and I'm going to get 2 sales. And once you have that level of predictability, then you can hire people into the business to start making those calls for you. You can hire people to start taking the appointments for you, to start doing the contracting work for you, because now you have predictability. But you can't hire all these sales reps and all these other things if you're just guessing. I hope I'm going to get this many referrals. I hope I'm going to get a call today for my Google website listing. So again, if you don't have a way to pay for clients, you don't have scalability. Also, just straight up referrals and relying on a Google website listing or whatever it is, that only gets you so far, because there's only so many referrals you're going to get, and it becomes capped. But if you know you can pay $150 for a lead, for example, and every 3 leads, 1 turns into a sale, you could spend $1,000 or you could spend $50,000. And you can just keep choosing to scale. And that's when you have predictability in a business. So it's the exact same thing. That's what I would recommend. Once in that previous company, for example, that got to $3.5 million a month, the reason why is because we had what's called an SLO, a self-liquidating offer. Meaning they would pay like $27 to get a book or $97 to get a book, whatever it was. And from that book, we could run that as an ad, and then all the leads that bought that book could be upsold into a coaching program, for example, right? And so now we know this is how much it costs to get a lead. And then if we know it costs that much to get a lead, we could spend $10,000 a month on ads, which is what it was like at the very beginning. Or towards the end, we were spending almost $1 million a month on ads. And it was the same numbers because there was predictability. So we could just up the ad spend, hire more people that were good, remove ourselves from the business in a sense to where we didn't have to work as much. We weren't as time constrained. I could go on vacation if I wanted to. I could spend time this day if I wanted to. I didn't have to be chasing appointments and leads and all this other stuff because I had predictability. And so I think that's the key to any business.
Yep. And just from what I've seen myself as well, just across, like so many industries, and I'm sure you've seen more than me because you've seen buyers from, from traditional industries to new age industries online. Like, let's
Yeah.
say now compared to like 10, 15 years ago, what do you feel like has changed in terms of the buyer persona and the buyer perspective? Are they a lot more skeptical nowadays? Like, what has really changed?
People are more aware. It's what I was saying earlier. People can go online and get 10 quotes. They can look at 10 different contractors in the same city. So if you're not adapting to that and you don't have a better sales process and better marketing, you're going to fall behind. That is the truth. Because other people will adapt. And if you're not, the young guys that are coming in, they never knew the old days when you could just get a lead and it was a free sale because they didn't even know they had another option. They don't even know those days. All they know is the current state of the market, which is people are getting views on social media. People are advertising. People are building a personal brand. People are getting better at sales and learning better skill sets. Like, that's all these new young guys know. So if they know that and you don't, and all you know is the old business of referrals and relying on just hoping and praying that a lead's going to come in, they're going to beat you 10 times over. This is the truth. It's a sad truth, and it's not your fault. That's how you grew up. That's the society you were in, the business you were in. But even though it's not your fault, it is your what? It is your problem. So that's what I would say is like, you have to adapt or you die. That's reality.
And when you mentioned mindset, one big thing that clicked in my mind, and it's a really good question that I think you can provide insights on, which is how do you view risk? And when I say risk, I mean, I think I watched a video a while ago about, hey, every single step forward that you make, you have to take a step backwards first. How do you view risk? Because you've gotten into numbers in your business and financial goals. in a much shorter time than most people. How do you view risk yourself?
Here's how I think about it. I think about it like you do what works. And what I mean by that is, and if you do that, risk will never be there, even though the illusion of it will be there. So what I mean is, if you run a business right now, if you're watching this video and you run a business, you took a risk, which is the reason you started the business. You didn't go to college and become an engineer. You didn't go become a programmer. You didn't get into the internet boom 20 years ago. You took a risk and you started a business. And where did it get you? I hope somewhere where you have more freedom and you make more money. Hopefully you're doing 10, 20, 50, $100,000 a month with your business, whatever it is, right? So it took you to a place that gave you the freedom that you wanted to have. And hopefully you're happy with it. And if taking that risk is what got you there, looking back, was that a risk at all? Or was it more risky to go down the educational route and end up landing a job where you're controlled, you don't have any freedom, you're not building something you love, you're not doing what you love to do? Which one was more risky? Well, that one was more risky. So you actually did the thing that wasn't risky, even though everybody else views it as risk. And so the way I think about it, you keep doing the things that get you where you are. If you have somebody who's 50 pounds overweight and they're trying to lose 50 pounds, and they lose 10 pounds by eating properly, eating their veggies, whatever it is, going for runs, doing cardio 3 times a week, and they lose 10 pounds, and now they're trying to lose the rest of the 40. And they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to change how I'm approaching this. Makes no sense. It worked. It worked. Keep doing the thing that worked. Why would you change it? Why would you stop it? So that's how I think about it. If risk put you in a position where now you have a business and you have freedom and you have security and you have everything else, then maybe you should keep taking risks. Because that put you in a position you wanted to be in. Why would you stop doing the thing that got you in a good position? It makes no sense.
So
because then eventually you start to think about it and it's like, well, taking those risks, maybe they're not a risk at all.
So it's all an illusion, right? Risk is
Exactly.
all down to perspective. You can perceive it to be risk, or you can perceive it as the next big thing. It's
Exactly.
uncomfortable, but if you move towards it, it's there.
Exactly.
Is
It's
that the
not
same way
actually.
you deal with uncertainty as well? Because, once again, every business decision that you make, that I make, that every business owner makes, there will be uncertainty. But a lot of business owners, they look for certainty. Like maybe I do, you do, but how do you overcome that? Or how do you reframe yourself? Or how do you change the illusion?
So I did research. So if you look at the most successful companies in the world, take Nike, take Amazon, take Apple, how many times have they almost gone bankrupt? A lot. How many times have they almost failed? A lot. But they didn't. So if they had never pushed through that uncertainty when they were about to go bankrupt, would they be here today? Would we know Amazon as we know it? Would we know Nike as we know it? Would I be wearing Nike shoes right now? No. Because uncertainty, again, it's the exact same thing. It's just an illusion. It is a prerequisite. It is a requirement. And people might be watching this being like, oh, but I don't want to build a multi-billion-dollar company. You don't have to, but it's not the premise of that. The premise is they did something successful. Same thing, if you want to get a wife or a girlfriend, you go through uncertainty. You go on a lot of dates with women that you don't know you're going to like them or not. And then you find the one. Uncertainty, success. So everything good in life, everything worth having requires uncertainty and doing things that are uncomfortable, and that's what gets you the results you want. So if it put you in the position, exact same thing as risk. If it put you in a good position, then don't stop doing the damn thing that put you in that position. That's how I think about it.
And it's actually like, from what you said to me, it's actually a lot simpler than it actually is. Because for a lot of people, they look for, I want to guarantee this, I want to review this, I want to go through every single variable. But at the end of the day, and like one thing that I saw as well, like at the end of the day, it's about opportunity costs. Like every single day, let's say I want to make $1 million. If I make $50,000 right now, every single year that I'm not making $1 million, I'm losing $950,000. Is that kind of your mindset when you make your decisions?
I don't actively think about it like that, but that is true. That's not really what I think about. I just know, like, I just want to take over. Like, I want to be one of the names that's remembered. in business. And I want to build something massive in a way that's never been done before in a generation where people, and most people, if you're older watching this, most people agree. Like most people in my generation are lazy, unmotivated, unintelligent, don't want to work hard, aren't willing to do what it actually takes to survive and succeed. It's overall a pretty weak generation, I would say. Sadly. And I hate that because it's my generation. So I want to be one of the people that's remembered in the generation for adapting, for being able to use social media and do it in a way that's never been done before, and have the same guerrilla marketing that's worked in the past, but now on different platforms, and use it differently and leverage AI and all these different things. So I know like I want to take over, and every day I wake up and it's that drive of I want to do something great, and I want to build, and I want to help a lot of people, and I want to change lives, and I want to impact. And so I know that's the only way to get to where I want to go. I would not be 17 where I am today if I hadn't had that mentality. If I had settled, there's no shot in hell. This is nowadays, it is the easiest time I believe in history to succeed. I don't think 50 years ago you could be 17 doing what I'm doing. I don't think so. It is the easiest time in history to succeed, and that's not just for young people, but it's for older people trying to adapt, trying to create something new, trying to make their business that's structured in an old way turn into something new. It's for everybody. But it's a decision. In fact, I would argue if you're older, you have an advantage because you have the life experience, you have the results, you have the service delivery and everything else. Now all you have to learn is this new stuff that young people still haven't even learned yet. Most people haven't even learned it. They scroll on TikTok 12 hours a day. That doesn't make them a TikTok professional. That doesn't mean they can post TikToks and start going viral. They don't know the game. So I would argue you're actually at an advantage if you actually leverage it and use it to your capabilities. So that's what it comes down to.
What's your approach to adapting though? Like, for older business owners, like they have no framework in itself to actually know when do you adapt, how to adapt, what do you adapt,
Being
how do
open
you see it?
and always looking at the new things. That's how I think about it. There's a company, Cluely, right now, right? They're going viral. Do you know Cluely?
I do.
Yeah. Going viral on multiple platforms. Their entire thing is it's like mainly an enterprise SaaS and enterprise software, but their marketing is like Gen Z marketing. Like crazy stunts. Spending 150 grand on a launch video, which was all the money they had at the time. They don't have any funding. They hired a stripper even for the market. Like crazy stuff. Never heard before in Silicon Valley, right? In Silicon Valley, they launched the biggest party ever to happen for tech founders ever. And it got shut down by police. And all the old people, if you look in their comment sections, all the older people are commenting, oh, this is an embarrassment to the VC community. This is an embarrassment to enterprise software, like all this stuff. Look at the new people commenting. I love this. This is fantastic. This is awesome. They're in alignment with the new generation, which is why they're going to succeed, because that's the future. And I mean, look at it. They have like $20 million of funding from venture capital. They are growing at an insane rate. They are more successful than 99% of software. I would say arguably the fastest growing software of all time, I would argue. So like, it works. Even though it's not conventional, it works. So you look at what's new and you adapt to it. And I think it's the same thing, whether you're in construction, whether you're in anything else. You even see the reels on Instagram, and I see them all the time. It's like a contractor or like a real estate agent or something that's like 40 or 50 or 60 years old. But they hired somebody that's younger who understands the game. They paid a mentor to teach them like Gen Z marketing. And now they're making these reels with like Gen Z memes and stuff, which are hilarious. And they're going viral and they're making a lot of money and they're being extremely successful. So you have to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you die. And that's the reality.
And just coming from that, though, like, yes, you're talking about the mindset. Just like myself and, I understand many other business owners out there, they've got big goals, big vision. Maybe it's to take care of their family, take them on holiday, buy a new house, or just, want to feel important as a business owner. So a lot of the time they've got big goals and vision. But when it comes time to putting in the work and making those harsh decisions or hard decisions, then they kind of go back to their shell. So how do you kind of view those two things, like your vision and action? Because not all the time do they actually align. How do you kind of align those?
Well, it comes down to a plan. You need a plan. So like you set in stone, I'm going to do this. And after you have that in stone, you have to reverse engineer it. I know I want to become one of the names in online business. And so if I know that that's the goal, I have to reverse engineer. I need great marketing, number one. So I pay mentors for content and marketing $5,000 an hour to learn from them because I want to become the best. And I know I do. So I need to learn. And so once I have that down, I can reverse engineer a plan. I know I need to put out 10 videos a day. And I do. Right now I'm putting out 9 to 10 videos a day through trial reels and other features and all this other stuff. So like I know if I want to become big, I need to act like the person who becomes big. And you reverse engineer it and then you do it. And I think focusing on one thing in your business is key. If you're a contractor and you're doing the delivery, you're helping them with actual construction, and you are doing the sales, and you're handling the leads, and you're doing this, you're doing that, operations and everything else, you're not gonna have time to become great. So I would rather take the risk, hire somebody who, for example, can do the fulfillment, be like, what is the one lever in my business that if I pull this one lever, it will have the largest single impact in my entire business? Because for me, I know right now it's marketing and it's branding. So out of my 17 hours in a day that I'm working, 15 of those hours will go towards marketing and branding. 2 of them will be team management, meetings, training calls, whatever it is. But my number one focus is that one thing. And it's the same thing. If you're a contractor and you know sales is the number one lever to pull in your business, go all in on it. 15 hours a day. Make sure you have enough leads to constantly be calling, to constantly be working on, to constantly be taking appointments and getting better and improving. And then eventually, if that turns into marketing becoming the biggest thing, and you have a marketing agency or you have somebody that you hired into your marketing department, start working with them, become more involved with them. Maybe you give them a percent in the company after, obviously, they've already proven themselves, right? And you're like, okay, now I'm going to work with them. I'm going to learn how they do this. I'm going to try and help them. I'm going to give them better quality videos to work with, right? And then you start building a partnership and you start learning a lot more and becoming better. And that's how you build something massive. I don't care about giving equity away in my company. There's multiple people that have equity in my company. I have no problem with it because they're savages. They're great. They're phenomenal at what they do. So I'm happy to do it because I'm learning and I'm becoming the best. And I'd say, not arguably, I am the biggest person in the space at the moment at my age. And it's not even close. So that's what I would recommend. Do that. Build a movement. Build people. Focus on one thing. Become the damn best at it. And then whenever you need to switch that focus, you switch it. You hire more people into the previous positions that you already mastered.
What I find really interesting about what you said there, though, is kind of the confidence that you have, right? Because a lot of business owners, especially once again, older ones, right, they have the experience, they have all of that, but then they kind of doubt themselves, like, can I achieve this? Can I achieve that? And you're here, 17, you're not even legal in Australia, able to hit these goals. Kind of, in terms of confidence, what kind of gives you that?
I'm delusional.
In what way?
I'm delusional. I believe I can do things that nobody else believes not only they can do, but anybody can do. I believe I could take over the space before I'm 18. I believed I could have the biggest group in the entire industry in a month of launch. I did it in 2 weeks. I'm delusional, but I back up that delusion. I think this is the biggest thing I could possibly do. I have to reverse engineer what steps have to be taken in order to do it. I do all those steps and I make sure they get done damn well. And then all those delusions become a reality. So I think it's delusion of like setting a goal, big mistake people make. They set a goal, I think I can achieve this. The whole point of setting a goal is setting a goal that you don't even know if you can achieve. Because that's what pushes you to go get it. That's what makes you better. So all my goals that I set are things that have never been done before. All my visions are things that have never been done. If they've never been done, I have to be delusional to believe I can be the one to do it. And then I do it. And I just back it up. So nothing else to it.
Very interesting. And one last thing that I have for you, and it's even a question for myself as well, and possibly, for anyone that's watching this, is you've invested a lot of money into coaching and upskilling yourself, right?
Yeah.
How do you get the most out of these mentors, coaches, companies, or just people that know more than you? What questions do you ask? What's the approach? How do you squeeze as much as you can out of those people?
Two aspects. So I think there's technical and personal. So let's start with technical. Technical, I analyze the business, what I was saying earlier, figure out all of your data points, all the data metrics, how many impressions you're getting. What are the CTR of those impressions? Like how many leads are getting on your page? How many of those convert into an actual opt-in? How many of those get disqualified? How many appointments do you set from those? How many show up from those appointments? How many close? What's the average cash collection? What's the average LTV of a client? How many times do they return? Your average team member, how much revenue do they produce for the company? How much do you have to pay? Like every metric of the business, and then you analyze what is the one metric that is the worst, that would have the biggest impact if I fixed it. Because then you go to a mentor who's specialized in that thing, you're like, yo, can I pay you for your time? Yes, great, $5,000 an hour, here you go, teach me everything you know. And then I ask them questions about that one thing that is my bottleneck right now. And I asked some questions. For content, for example, it was how do I ideate? How do I innovate? How do I create new things and stunt marketing and make these new great ideas that can become a reality but that attract people? So I pay a mentor, teach me everything you know about that. What's your mental frameworks around building that? How do you leverage AI to do that? Everything else, I learn it. Now I know it. Now I succeed. Same thing. That's on a technical aspect. On a personal aspect, I seek to replicate patterns and behaviors that people have in common that succeed. For example, if people don't hang out with people less successful than them, and that's one thing that every successful person has in common, I don't know why the fuck you'd be hanging out with people less successful than you. Makes no sense. It's the same thing. If the average successful person, let's pretend, spends a certain amount of time with their kids or with their wife per week, and that is what works, and it doesn't have to be works in terms of does the most revenue, it could be works in terms of has the happiest relationship with their family and revenue, then I'm going to model that. Same thing. So that's how I think about personal and technical. They're separate, but I need to learn both from all my mentors.
Perfect. And one last thing, right, to wrap this up. If you had three big tips in just the business and especially in selling and marketing or just business in general, what would you say? Like, provide it so it's tangible and it's something that, anyone can take action on within the next week. What's the three biggest takeaways they can get from seeking someone like you who's young, who's been able to make it financially, and who's looking to kind of push forward and people are looking to replicate, obviously?
Figure out the biggest lever for you. That's key. Figure out the lever. What is the one thing that you could change that would have the biggest impact in the business? It's number one. Number two, it would be you learn from your mistakes or you learn from other people's mistakes. And I would rather learn from others. Because if I know the biggest lever in my business is going to be marketing or content, I can either post 10,000 videos until I figure out the formula to going viral, or I can pay somebody else who's already posted the 10,000 videos and learn it from him. That's why I was able to do it so young. Because if I worked through trial and error, I wouldn't be here. I would still be on video 500 out of the 10,000 I need to figure out what works. But instead, I already figured it out at video one because I paid somebody to mentor me, to learn the skill set, and now I can do it immediately. So, number two, it would be learn from other people's mistakes, not your own. And number three, I would say be very careful of who you're around. Because it'll shape who you are as a person, your environment. And if you're around people who are constantly talking about staying at 5K a month, and I get this many referrals, and I get this, and look at this other contractor, they're doing the exact same thing as me, so I just need to do it a little bit better. Rather than innovating something new, the people you're around, your environment is going to dictate what you do, and that will not allow you to be successful if those people aren't doing those successful things.
Gotcha. Perfect. And hey, I've just had someone send one more thing for you, which is within sales, for most people in general, if you could pull, let's say one or two levers, just, for applicable for most businesses that they can implement literally tomorrow, what could they pull? Could that be speed of lead? Like, what can they change instantly that you could feel like, hey, that can
Formula,
give you more sales?
having a process, I think is the biggest one. Having a formula to follow on every call to where you can make it better consistently. Because there's consistency within the process. That's the biggest lever, I would say, number one. Number two, data. At the end of every week, being able to write, this is my exact data, tracking it. Most people don't even track it. How many leads did I get? how many answered the phone, how many turned to an appointment, how many showed up, how many did I close, my average cash, all those metrics. You track all of them because then you constantly know what to work on. You're not guessing. When you move from guessing to data in order to improve, you become 10 times more successful because you will always be the guy who's guessing. So those are the two biggest levers in my opinion.
And being able to get those levers and pull them off, you got to be open to learning in the first place, right?
Of course, that's a prerequisite to success. You're not open to it, you're not going to succeed. Sorry. Like, reality.
Alrighty, guys, perfect. So, hey, Andres, thanks so much for joining on. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments and I'll try and reply, or I'll get Andres to reply. But apart from that, have a great day, guys.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.